Hey, it's Cersei, and today I'm going to be talking about the third boss in Manaforge Omega, Soulbinder Naazindhri. Soulbinder Naazindhri is a one-phase boss. We're going to go through these cycles over and over again of DPSing down unbound soul ads, and then at the end dealing with a rather large ad cleave. So, to get started, we of course have the obligatory healer affix for every raid boss, same with Spellburn. Just constant taking AoE damage for everybody. This boss is a decent healing fight. It seems like there's a good amount of damage that goes out. Just keep in mind, 4 healers should be plenty. Now, for the tanks to deal with, you're going to deal with something called Mystic Lash. This is a channeled ability where every tick will get increasingly more powerful. It will start low, then obviously increase toward the end at 240% increased damage. So I'd recommend probably having a light cooldown, but it didn't look to be too painful on PTR, but of course that is with them overgearing it. So you don't know how it's going to be when you first start out. So after that, obviously tank swap, and we get into the main ability of the fight in Soul Culling. Once Soul Culling is done, every single binding chamber, all the pink circles that I had, will have an unbound soul trapped within them, where they'll channel Soul Weave, turn into a Shadow Guard ad. So, dealing with 12 ads, not really ideal, and the fight is based on being able to remove 6 of them, and then only having to deal with 6 ads total. So to do that, there's a few abilities to deal with. The first is Soulfire Convergence. You're going to have 4 people targeted in Mythic, and you're going to get these 5 arrows on your body of where a Soul Rend Orb is going to be launched. And of course, don't put it through the group. Try to spread them out as much as possible, and just have the least people have to move as possible. On Mythic, each of the binding chambers is going to be protected by an arcane sigil. To break the arcane sigil to allow the binding chamber to be destroyed, you have to use one of the Soul Rend Orbs. It has to go through a binding chamber, hit it, break the sigil. When that happens, you're going to have a heal absorb put on the group, so 2 of them each time, about a 6 million heal absorb to deal with. And you only need 2 people to make sure that an orb goes through. Those will go out. And now the main ability to break the binding chamber itself in Sulfur Annihilation. 2 people will be targeted. You have 5 or 6 seconds to move, get behind the binding chamber, make sure that the binding chamber is hit by the orb. Once that happens, the binding chamber will break, and the 2 unbound souls within will be able to take damage, and will also take 200% increased damage. So, at that point, they break. Leave them down as quickly as you can. You have about 10 seconds before you'll have to start getting ready for the next set of binding chambers. So then you get to the last ability, Arcane Expulsion, where it's going to be a knockback and a big hit of damage. You're ready to heal through it. Some group defensives might be beneficial here. On Normal and Heroic, it's just a knockback. On Mythic, however, wherever you land, you will leave a puddle of arcane energy. So in Mythic, it's going to be more important to stack. Make sure then that the puddles are all grouped together, and you want to keep them away from the middle of the room. And that is pretty much it for this boss. You're going to repeat these cycles over and over again. Get the Soulfire Convergences out. Put at least 2 of the orbs through the binding chamber if on Mythic. Get the Sulfur Annihilations behind the binding chambers. Leave down the ads as quickly as you can. This might need people to swap. We'll need to see how they're tuned. And then prepare for the Arcane Expulsion. Get knocked back, keep the tools as tidy as possible on Mythic. And then get ready for the next set. So the third set, you'll move to 2 of them in the middle. Move to the top one and the left one. Again, just rinse and repeat from there. So it's important to stay on top of things. If you fall behind in DPS on the ads, they will end up being able to turn then, of course with lower health. They want to DPS them down as quick as they can, and just keep moving from there. Now we get into the culmination of the phase cycle, I would say, where at the end of Soul Weave, the ads will turn into actual ads. And you will have 3 different types to deal with, and 6 ads, so 2, 2, and 2 most likely. The first of which is the Shadow Guard Assassin. On normal and heroic, they'll just teleport to a player, deal a hit of damage, and then come back. On mythic, however, there'll be an AoE circle around you, so you'll have to be a little bit more spread to avoid cleave. On normal and heroic, everybody can just stack it on. Then for the Shadow Guard mages, they're going to just keep channeling a bolt, have interrupt groups ready for the 2 of them, so 2 interrupt groups. 4 people should probably suffice, maybe 5. On mythic, however, every time it's interrupted, the cast time will be halved, so if you have a group of 4, it'll probably be best to have those 4 interrupts, let the one go through, and then restart the interrupt rotation from there. So you're guaranteed to have some of these void bursts going out onto players. And then finally, you have the Shadow Guard Phase Blades. They'll end up just taking AoE damage. On Mythic, however, that taking AoE damage will increase over time as they gain stacks of Void Resonance. So this is where normal and heroic, there's probably going to be little priority on which one. Probably just cleave off the boss more likely than not. On Mythic, however, depending on how it's tuned, it didn't look to be the case in PTR that it was necessary, where you might need to target the Phase Blades down first if their ticking damage is ramping too quickly. So then you'll go through, kill these ads. This is actually a great time to use Bloodlust, as it lines up with 2-minute cooldowns, and you have 7 targets to deal damage to. Great option there. You're able to pop your 2-minute CDs at the start of the fight, and then also at the large damage event. Then Arcane Expulsion is going to happen. This is where you're probably going to want to prepare in a way, because you're going to go to that those 2 top right binding chambers. Here, Soulbinder Naazindhri, we'll cast another Mystic Flash. After that, we'll cast Soul Calling, and more or less, you will recycle from here. And this is where it's important. You want to leave the middle as open as possible, as you will be coming back there again, but you will not be going to the left. One thing to mention with these Sulfur Annihilations, it is an orb that is cast out from the boss. So if anybody is in front of it, they're going to eat the orb and prevent the binding chamber from breaking, making it possible to DPS down the ads. And then you'll have an extra one to deal with once you go through the cycle. Again, repeat, you go from there. A few things to note with the binding chambers: when they break, they will do an AoE hit of damage. This is important when the Soul Weave finishes casting, as there will be 6 Essence Implosion breaks all at once. It'll be a much larger hit than just when 2 are breaking, obviously. Then yeah, this fight otherwise is pretty straightforward. On normal and heroic with these Arcane Expulsions, you can just set them up to knock you towards the next set of ads that you're going to be killing. But on mythic, you might want to position them a little bit away and then use either like a Roar, Windrush Totem to go from there. Soulfire Convergences, I'm sure you can get fancy with and find ways so that way like the minimal amount of orbs are going through, but also something where people should be able to dodge without too much issue. And then after those ads die, we'll finish. You don't have Lust for this one. You will have your 2 minutes back though, so you should be able to hopefully cleave down these ads as quickly as possible. And then once these ads are all dead, you'll have one final Arcane Expulsion where you'll get knocked back, put yourself away. At that point, you just need to kill the boss before the boss kills you. I hadn't seen the Enrage, but I'm assuming it would be after this point. as people were killing the boss around now, and to restart a new cycle on the left doesn't really make sense. So you have a little bit of time, go through, and kill the boss. And that is Soulbinder Naazindhri. It's a little bit lackluster. I feel maybe with some tuning, the ads will be a little bit more impactful and you'll have to make choices. But for the most part, you're just going between two binding chambers in a set order and then dealing with whatever combination of ads you get. Yeah, that is Soulbinder Naazindhri, and good luck. Bye.